Thanks, Mia. So yeah, maybe if we just start with a little bit about me, just
Yeah.
So I'll be completely open. I'm 43 years old, live in Melbourne, Australia. To be honest, right now, I'm really lucky to be sitting at Bells Beach watching the sunrise across Bells Beach. And I don't know if any of you follow surfing, but yeah, it's a pretty famous surf beach. You might have seen Kelly Slater ringing the bell here before, and it's just a beautiful spot. And yeah, I've got 4 kids, ranging in age from 16 through to 7, almost 8. She'll be 8 in a couple of weeks. And for work, I work for a large Australian retailer, very well-known business in this country, recently named in the top 3 trusted brands in the country. And I'm a senior executive, so there's 10 of us on the leadership team at that business, and that keeps me pretty busy, as well as the 4 kids. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
and the
life's
surfing.
busy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, every now and then. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we don't live down here, but
Oh,
I'm
okay.
lucky enough that I'm actually on a retreat for this
Nice.
3 days with work, and it's a resilience retreat, and
Nice.
it's actually really interesting because there's some stuff that's connecting with what we've been learning in the program, but in being completely honest, it's really superficial by comparison. It is.
Thank you.
The depth is just not there. It's completely different, but just great to be down here and great to be sitting at Bells Beach. Yeah.
Awesome. Tell them, I'm sure for those that are interested, what was it before you even heard about us and so forth? What was life like? Like, how were you struggling before?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's actually, I mean, yeah, it's a great question, probably the obvious one that I think a lot of people here would have. But even before this call, I was sitting at home sort of last week when Michael kindly asked me to jump on and have a chat, and there were times where I actually struggled to connect with what it was like, and almost as I started to get myself back into that headspace that I was in, or the feeling space that I was in previously, it didn't feel good, and I actually didn't want to.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, well, I actually didn't want to reconnect with it.
I don't blame you.
No, it wasn't a good feeling. So for me, before joining the program, I guess mentally I operated from a space of having to do what everybody else expected of me, and that's kind of how I've lived my 43 years. Having to live up to everyone's expectations, having to sort of be the best at everything and prove myself, and always looking for external validation and praise. And I mean, that was a really big one. And I didn't even realize how big it was until probably the very start of the program. And I was sitting at the table one night, I cooked a barbecue for the kids, and the burgers were they're just great burgers. I cooked some killer burgers that night. And I think I called it out 3 times how good the burgers were. And I'm like, man, hang on a second. Why are you doing this? You're calling this out because you're looking for validation from other people. And it was just constant. So I was able to recognize some of those things. I think emotionally as well, the thing I really struggled with, and one of the key drivers for me joining the program, was I really felt like I didn't know who I was. Like, I was really disconnected. I felt this real disconnect. And the way I described it previously was between what I'd called, this is just my terminology, but my logical, rational, practical self and my feeling self. And they were like completely disconnected. And the logical, rational self absolutely dominated. And logical, rational self would just absolutely squash it. And it left that feeling part of me just feeling completely oppressed, just totally oppressed. And it kind of left me feeling like, and I described this early in the program, you guys will probably remember, is like I lived my life with this medieval suit of armor on, with the full visor down.
Yeah.
and
like
and
no holes.
It was like that I wore that armor every day for 43 years, and it's just heavy, and it means that you can't feel the connection with the world around you coming from the outside, but you can't also experience it by giving from the inside either. There's just this constant heavy barrier. So for me, there's some of the things that I was really experiencing before the program, and some of the motivators for me.
Yeah, like I remember you less than 5 weeks ago when you were in their seats, and you actually felt disconnected from the head. Remember me saying that to you too?
No, I remember the words.
I was like, do you notice that you...
Yeah, I remember the words you said, Mia, and because they hit home for me. And this was the first time I'd hopped on and spoken on one of the calls. It was in the 5-day challenge.
Yeah.
And I think, I was saying all the right things, and you just cut through it straight away and said, you're lovable and you're saying all the right things, but you're not squishy lovable was the term that you used. And it just nailed it. Like on one level, it kind of hurt a little bit.
I know. I'm sorry.
So true.
It does hurt a little bit.
But it was spot on, like spot on. So
I mean, because like when I feel you now, I mean, like you just feel so different to me, right? Like you're just so open. You're so willing to be in anything. You're really expressional. Like you feel squishy.
Thanks. Well, once upon a time, I wouldn't have taken that as a compliment, but now that's a real compliment.
It's a real compliment. It's a real compliment. Yeah. And so then how has this shifted then business-wise for you? Like, what was it like? Well, I should say this first. How were you used to be in business? Yeah.
So in terms of business, and I kind of gave a little bit of insight, in the introduction just then, but I guess, externally, you could look at it and say, I've been really successful in business or in my career, my professional life. I've worked for a fantastic business. I've been on the senior executive team for 10 years. You'd look at that at face value and say that's really successful and something that you'd be really happy with. But I was professionally deeply unhappy, like really unhappy, and really questioning why. Why am I here? What am I doing? What am I getting out of this? What fulfillment is there? And part of that was because of that, wearing that armor every day, it meant that every day was just a slog. Every day was hard work. And, challenges would come up, but I wouldn't look at them as challenges and opportunities. They were just more issues to deal with. It was just more shit upon shit upon shit. And it was just heavy. And every day I was just weighed down by that. Yeah. So in terms of business, I think the key difference that I've felt, and remembering, we're only, would you say, Michael, week 6?
We just started week 6. So you've only done 5 weeks 6, of the program.
You've only done 5 weeks.
So every now and then I've sort of got to check myself every now and then. But, one of the key differences is I'm far more open, and probably the biggest change is the level of curiosity has increased. So I'm asking a lot more questions that I wouldn't have asked previously. And I think it's because I'm not worried about being right or wrong. I'm not worried about what other people's perceptions will be of the questions that I'm asking. I just genuinely want to know stuff. Like I just want to understand things and, do things better and connect with people. And I'm just much happier within myself, and I said from a professional perspective, I'm starting to look at things more as opportunities, and instead of looking at them as just, like I said, just more shit on top of shit.
Exactly.
And probably just the other thing I'd add is, and I spoke about this during the challenge. Growing up playing a lot of basketball at a really high competitive level, and even from a work perspective, the way I felt is that I've just been playing defense. Like every day has just been defense, and defense is the hard grind slog part of the game. And there's still a beauty in it, but it's the hard, physical, tough side of the game. And I actually feel over the past couple of weeks in particular, probably the last 2 weeks, I'm actually starting to play some offense, and not offense in an attacking sense. It's recognizing that in offense there's a level of flow and creativity that you feel in offense that you don't feel when you're playing defense. And that's the big shift that I've noticed from a business perspective.
It's huge. It's huge. Inside of that, can you share just a little bit, like what was your trauma? I'm sure people are like, what was it? Was it anything you thought it was going to be? Was your trauma what you thought? Yeah.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I would never have picked it. And I kind of had an inkling as to what it might be. And I did share that with Michael.
Yeah.
Early during my session, and to let people know, my session was probably one of the longer sessions. It was pretty epic, and I actually watched it back last week for the first time. And we moved some energy, Michael, that in that session, man.
A little bit.
did we ever?
Just a little bit. No.
Like a little epic amounts of energy. Yes.
Like, but
Yeah.
my
Like we
trauma,
could have possibly like maybe powered a city for a little while, but
it was intense. And
Yeah.
like, but the core trauma, and I never would have got to this, like never, is I would have been, I'm thinking probably about 3 months old, somewhere around that age. And I was laying in my cot, and I could feel sort of the heaviness on my chest, and was really hot and distressed. And quite simply what it was is that, and I could see movement outside the room, and I knew it was my mum. And my mum had just left me in the cot to cry. And I knew she was there, and she could hear me, she could see me, but she just wasn't coming. And I worked myself up so much in that moment, and made it mean a whole lot of things that it actually, you know, as Michael and I sort of worked through in the breakthrough, that it's not actually what it meant, but it's the reality I created in that moment. You know, that was the trauma. You know, that feeling of being left and isolated and unloved, which kind of played out through my life. Yeah, and through that, I don't know how much you want me to share of the trauma, but in that moment and the intense feelings I had, the anger, disbelief, dismay at how mum could leave me in that situation, knowing that I was there, I actually shut myself off from the world. And part of my response to that emotionally was, you know that I'm here. I thought you loved me. You clearly don't. You're not getting any love from me. The world is not getting any love from me. I'm shutting down. And I shut down.
And that's the armor, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the armor. That's the armor that I've worn
goosebumps listening
every
to that.
day.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I've worn that armor every day since then. And I mean, I would never in a million years would I have picked something like that as being my trauma. No chance. Yeah.
I totally feel you. I totally feel you. Okay, so then inside of this, now that you've overcome, like, what has life been like since? So, and I know this is only 5 weeks, but like since all of these,
and
I know
only
it's
did your breakthrough
kind of,
session. What, like, I don't even remember. Was it?
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks
like
ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So what has opened up as a result of being in the program inside of the 5 weeks? What is life like now?
Well,
what are your results?
Yeah. So number one, probably the simplest way to describe it is I'm happier. Like, I'm just happier. I'm lighter. I guess from that, talking about that suit of armor, that the suit of armor is off. Like, it's off for the first time in my life, and I can actually feel and connect with the world around me, including the people in my life. I can give more as well. So I'm just so much more connected to life than what I was, than what I feel like I've ever been. And people are noticing it as well. What one of my sister-in-laws actually said, not to me directly, but to my partner and I are separated, but she actually spoke to my partner and said, Brett's really different. Like, he's changed, just completely different. And like, I was at a barbecue on Saturday night with people, and I know a few of those people, but not a lot of them. But I just connected with everybody there, just effortlessly. It wasn't even anything I thought about, but I was just so much more open to just engaging with people out of genuine, and I talked about curiosity from a work perspective, but it's there from a personal perspective too, just this curiosity to want to connect with people and ask them stuff and get to know them and talk about experiences. And I'm very different. Like I said, I'm conscious that it's 2 weeks, so I'm keeping a bit of a lid on it, but I feel different.
It's so freaking awesome.
Yep.
It's so freaking awesome. One last question, and then of course, and I know you're super busy, and we'll definitely let you go.
Cool.
But one last question. I know for some people on the fence are like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Like, this is an investment in myself. Did you have any of those fears, or how did you overcome them? And even if you didn't have that fear, how would you look at that? I'm just as a last question inside of that, because I know that comes up for everybody. What is that for you?
Yeah. For me, I probably didn't have those concerns quite as much.
Well, you had known someone that came through the program too before you got.
That's right. Yeah, so I know someone who's been through the program. Did the 8 week and now is is well into the 12 month, and I've seen the changes in her and what this program has meant for her through the past, I don't know, it's probably been 8 months now, maybe somewhere in that vicinity.
And I got to tease Brett for a second, because I kind of overheard this, but like there was some skepticism coming up because you told me that you and Brendan were talking about this. So
no,
I don't know, what was that?
No, Brendan said that. I probably was less so because again because I know someone who, and you guys know who I'm referring to.
Yeah.
And I've seen the changes there, so I wasn't probably deeply skeptical. I think there was probably a part of me that thought, will it work for me personally? Because I had belief and I had a proof point around someone else. But yeah, Brendan and I. So for those on the call, Brendan's another participant in the 8-week challenge, and we connected really early. Like even during the 5-day, we were private messaging each other, and we had a lot of the same things on our mind. And I think that's probably what he was referring to. And and look, even Brendan now. Brendan only just had his breakthrough session over the weekend, and he's all in, no doubt about it.
Amazing.
But yeah, for me, just from a financial perspective, I've worked pretty hard my whole life. I've got a senior role, and was okay from a financial perspective to be able to do the program. But even having said that, anytime you're parting with, money, it's a decision, and there's, to get technical, there's always an opportunity cost involved in doing that. But the way I've looked at it is, if in doing this I get to a point where I'm making more aligned and better choices, then it will absolutely pay itself back. So even if I think about what I do for work, I know that it will lead to better outcomes for the total business and the people who work in the business, and greater access to short-term incentive bonuses for myself and the team and all of those things. And so my view was, if it makes me a better me, then it's going to pay itself back.
Really awesome.
That's kind of the way I looked at it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's just been like really wonderful to see your transformation. Like I freaking love it. To watch how much you shifted inside of that is just so beautiful. Like it's really beautiful. I know I shared this with you, but it's like you just start talking. I'm like, okay, let's go have a beer. I don't even drink beer. I'm a tequila drinker, but let's just shoot some shit, man. Like it just is like, he's got that real, like, I can sit and talk to you forever kind of feel now, right? Where before he wasn't like that. So it's so super cool. I just want to honor you on that.